Time to talk about. Time to finally talk about what happened. What a thumbnail! Look at this contemplative man on what is this, like a seaside or a lakeside or something? It's from New York, so it's probably like full of trash. But like, what a thumbnail! Honestly, I haven't watched this yet, but so I was told that I'm mentioned in it. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to to have a genuine reaction to being mentioned. But I haven't watched it, so everything else is going to be completely genuine. Let's go, folks. This is what we're all here for. This is the main
Hey,
event.
everybody.
Caleb Maupin on the seaside or lakeside or whatever side this is, with probably the worst color grading I've ever seen in my life. Let's check it out.
I'm back. So is the Center for Political Innovation. Glad to be here. Now, the reason that we've been silent for so long is because on August 19th, a document was published by some former members of the CPI. Now, this document made some pretty outrageous claims about the nature of our organization. It also exposed some deeply personal information about me. Now, before they published this, the folks who put this document together...
Wait, there's multiple camera angles? Did he like hire a fucking videographer for this? He hired a fucking videographer to film his apology video and went down to the fucking seaside. This is great. Oh man. And yeah, the sound, he hired a videographer, and then like the audio, like the videographer like forgot to put a fucking like a wind filter thingy on the microphone. That's hilarious.
Went around to different media personalities, different associates, and person after person told them not to do it. They told them that this was not necessary, that they shouldn't publish this document. They didn't listen.
Wow, man. Like, I guess if you like sexually harass people and like exploit desperate mentally ill teenagers into doing free labor for you, and you beg them not to talk about that they shouldn't do it. Yeah, dude. Like he's mentioning that like we're supposed to think that's a bad thing. I don't get it.
They had every opportunity to negotiate some kind of restorative justice.
Why should they have to negotiate with you? Why should they? After what you did, why do you not deserve to face real consequences? Why should everything be kept on the down low? Are you fucking real? It should all just be they should have given you an opportunity to sweep it all under the fucking rug. What are you talking about, you dumb fuck?
Justice, to try and get reforms inside the organization,
It's not about reforms in the organization. It's not even an organization. It's just fucking you. It's just you exploiting vulnerable, dumb kids whose brains aren't fully developed and getting them to do free labor for you, and apparently getting them to do sexual things for you too, Caleb.
negotiate with me somehow. They didn't want to do that. They were
I wouldn't want to do that either. Okay?
determined to go public with this
Good.
document.
Good on
Why?
them. Good on them.
Clout. They wanted to
Clout. Clout. You think these people have gotten clout from this? Are you fucking kidding me? What clout have they gotten, Caleb?
get more likes, more
Why is there like a random fucking guy on the screen?
shares, more Facebook
No
views,
context.
more attention. And that's why I have waited so long to give an answer to
Just
that.
like putting the like the images of the people who apparently made videos talking about this. Now they wanted clout. They wanted clout. You know, they dared to put out videos talking about what happened to them. That proves that they just wanted clout, right? That proves it. I wonder if he's even going to contest the facts here.
I don't want
Or
to
he's
get
just going to try to accuse them of just wanting clout.
into a social media back and forth with them about every detail of what they wrote.
So he's not going to.
I'm going to answer this once and then never speak about this again.
Oh, yes. That's probably the best thing you could ever possibly do for yourself, because otherwise you're totally fucked, right?
Often my live streams get very psychological. We talk about trauma and history and abuse and how it affects people. I apologize if you thought I was talking about this in a way that meant it didn't apply to me. It does apply to me. I do, like many of you, have abuse in my personal history, and it has affected me as an adult. I would have preferred to keep this private, but it is.
So he's gonna blame like his abuse for him, like like hiring and pimping one of his desperate organization members to spank him and engage in his sexual fetish.
Now all over the internet. Now, spanking isn't just my deep, dark...
No! No! Is he...
all over the internet.
The angle change. The angle change. Followed by the quote. This is fucking... I don't know. Cinematic excellence right here. This is fucking incredible. He wrote this and read it thinking it was a good idea.
Now, spanking isn't just my deep, dark personal secret. It's America's deep, dark secret. 19 U.S. states still allow for corporal punishment in public...
Feels like he supports the Holocaust.
Sublime. Fucking Tim and Eric couldn't do better. Amazing. Wow. It is so incredible that he was accused of like being uncomfortably obsessed with spanking, and his response to that is to just be like, yep, I'm obsessed with spanking, and talk about all of the things that people said he would constantly bring up and probe about, essentially confirming that what they said about him, just randomly, inappropriately bringing up his sexual fetish constantly with them, as if he was probing for the opportunity to talk to them about it more, or to even engaging in it with them, people in his organization he was in a position of power over. By doing that, he's just confirming it. And this is pretty much what I was expecting here. Like, he's going to try and make it out like the problem was the spanking, rather than the problem being him trying to like constantly sort of push the members of his organization into indulging him in his sexual fetish. Doesn't matter if your sexual fetish was spanking. It doesn't even matter if your sexual fetish was fucking missionary penis and vagina sex, okay? What matters is the manipulation. The manipulation combined with the power dynamic that was going on here. It has nothing to do with the spanking. Though the spanking is extremely funny. No doubt about it. It's extremely funny that he's literally just so oblivious that he, in a script that he wrote and refined and got a videographer to film him for, he's essentially just confirming what everyone said about him. The problem here is not that he likes spanking, though it is extremely funny. The problem here is that he used his political organization as an opportunity to find people to like get sexual gratification.
Communism is based
both just by speaking to them and by literally getting them to engage in his sexual fetish with him. So obviously it's fucked up.
Schools. There's not a day that goes by in Alabama or Mississippi or Texas that some school child isn't being struck with a heavy piece of wood by a teacher.
It is so fucking weird that he's talking about kids getting spanked when the context here is his sexual fetish for spanking. Caleb, why do you think so much about children being spanked?
Someone who's supposed to be their caretaker. Now, studies show that corporal punishment
What?
is an
This has nothing to do with anything. Holy shit, his spin here is going to be like, actually, it is true that children are spanked in America. Ergo, it's totally normal that I love spanking and I want to be spanked. Everything else, the whole power dynamic issue, the manipulation, the sexual manipulation, the pimping out my political organization member, the like putting up like random 18-year-olds in hotel rooms and taking and like removing them from any other support networks that are totally reliant on me. Well, none of that matters. All that matters is spanking real in the USA or not? That's all that matters.
Effective and harmful way of raising a child. Furthermore, the way we practice corporal punishment in Anglo countries has a particularly sexual undertone to it. Pain is inflicted on a specific part of the body. It often includes forced nudity and other humiliations. The United States needs to join with 128 other countries and outlaw the practice of corporal punishment in school. Parents need to be educated about more healthy ways of disciplining their children. We as a society need to get past this harmful practice that has left so many hidden scars and wounds on so many of us.
What? This is such a weird spin. This is bizarre. This is completely fucking bizarre. And there's no way that anyone could possibly watch this and be convinced unless they are like a complete moronic cultist in the first place. Like, this is nothing to do with any of the issues here. He's like ignoring the heinous shit that he did to instead focus on the funny bit. Like, dude, no one cares. Like, it's just funny that you love to be spanked. It's not like a moral issue that you love to be spanked. The issue is that you like forced your org members to, you forced at least one of them to literally spank you for money. And with others, you try to push them into like giving you sexual gratification by speaking to you about spanking. Okay?
I'm deeply moved by the number of people in my community who reached out to me and said that they have experienced similar things in their life. And I know that I'm not the only person who's been affected this way.
If someone read like the Kayla Maupin spanking drama shit and came to him like, man, thank you so much for standing up for us spankies, I'm fucking gobsmacked. I don't believe that happened, Caleb. I'm sorry.
So now on to the matter at hand. What did I do wrong? Well, I brought my personal life into a political space, and I shouldn't have done that. And to everyone who was affected by that, I deeply apologize. I've taken time off to get the help I need to make sure I do not make this mistake again. But let me emphasize, all that I'm accused of is a few interactions, mostly conversations with consenting adults. And that's all I'm accused of doing.
Mostly conversation with consenting adults. No.
However, immediately after this document was published, news articles showed up accusing me of sexual assault. This document does not accuse me of sexual assault. All over Twitter, I've been called a groomer, a pedophile, and
yeah, you literally are a groomer. I mean, grooming doesn't necessarily have to be like of an underage person. What are you, like 5 years old? 30 at least. And you have like random 18-year-olds in a political organization with you. You get them to move across the country, make them totally reliant on you and the organization. And with at least one of them, we know that after doing this, you then started paying them for sex. So that's spinning the definition of consent quite a bit there. And in a lot of the context, there was not even that element, if you can even call that consent, there. Like him pushing random members of his organization, many of them very young, into speaking to him about spanking. And he also admitted to them or others that like he would get off on just talking about these things with them. So it's a lot more than what he's letting on here.
Things. I've even been called a rapist. None of those things are in this document that was published. It's pretty clear this whole situation is being manipulated by outside forces. But
what is being manipulated? This I don't know what this is, but it looks to me like one of those bot websites that just pick up on like trending topics and then put together like a an algorithm article about him. Let's look. Because he clearly hasn't been able to find... Fuck, what is this key? He clearly hasn't been able to like actually find... It's gist.trendingnotice.com. It doesn't even exist anymore. It's exactly what I said. It's just one of those bot websites. Like, no one actually wrote an article about him. A random, like, algorithm just put shit together about him that it found on Google to get some ad clicks. No one made an article about him. And he's trying to spin this as like, you see, they're making articles about me. This is proof that there is some broad conspiracy to attack me. This is what he always does. He he tries to paint himself as the victim of some sort of massive conspiracy. Like he's the main character of the fucking world. It's like gang stalking sort of shit. Caleb, you're not nearly important enough. You fucking wish that you had news articles being made about you. But dude, this article on trendingtopic.com by Ifalolua, which isn't even a real person, obviously, that was created in order to get you to click the ad about Taylor Swift to learn more, that's not news articles about you. It's just a random algorithm trying to make some money from ad clicks by picking up on a trending topic.
We'll get to that later. Now, one of the most common claims that's been floating around is the allegation that somehow CPI was a, quote, sex cult. Well, the accusers themselves, the people who put this document together, were the first to speak up and say that that's not the case. Well, I appreciate that from them, but they know how the internet works. As soon as this was published, immediately every anti-China, anti-Russia, bread tube troll...
He's not even fucking... He's not addressing what they said at all. He's just saying, like, look at this. Look at this. Because people who hate me picked up on it, that means it's invalid or something. He's not addressing the actual content of the allegations at all.
Jumped on it and made it into something that it wasn't. And they knew that this would happen, but they didn't care. It was so important to them to inflict emotional pain on me, on my wife, on my parents, and on others.
She's still your wife? How is she still his wife?
Organization that they really didn't mind that it was going to be picked up and used for other purposes. It was so important to them to hurt me that they just had to do this. Now, in addition to the sex drama, the document goes on to imply a number of things that are just not true. One of the biggest false narratives in the document involves an unnamed person who is referred to as a heroin addict and a sex worker. Now, this document gives the impression that this...
Is he mentioning her apparently being a heroin addict to, like, delegitimize her? Of course.
Person never would have been a sex worker, never would have relapsed in their heroin addiction if it wasn't for me. The document basically says that I maniacally conspired to make this person lose their job, to make this person relapse on their heroin addiction.
It doesn't really matter anyway, because if they relapse on their heroin addiction because of you, it still happened, whether you intended for it or not. And is he going to contest the fact that this person essentially gave up everything and was forced into letting him pay them for sex?
All so I could have them right where I want them. Well, that's bullshit, and people familiar with the situation know that. The truth of the situation is that this person would never have moved in with the other volunteers if it wasn't for the fact that their partner, also a heroin addict, beat them up so badly they had to go to the hospital. We were trying to protect this person and give them a safe place to stay.
Did you try to protect them by paying them $200 an hour to spank your buttocks, Caleb? Was that you trying to protect them? I don't think that was part of the protection, Caleb.
And get clean. This person lied to us and said that they were sober, they were no longer using drugs. And let me add that what happened between me and this person did not take place until long after they had already moved out from the housing. At that point, they weren't
This text here, this genuinely reads like one of their meetings, like going to like a fucking hotel room. Read this. It reads like a pre-spanking session text. Unbelievable.
Participating very much in CPI activities. After this person had moved out of the housing with the other volunteers, I continued to buy this person many meals. This person made clear to me that they were desperate and that they were low on money and that they also were interested in pursuing certain activities with me. Now, I should have had the foresight and the self-control not to continue to engage with this person.
He's trying to make it out like it's not that he was paying them for sex. It's rather they forced him to have sex with him or something. It was them. It was all their fault. You know, my God, it's like going up and soliciting like a sex worker in the street, and then being like afterwards, God damn it, she fucking provoked me, man. She forced me into doing that.
Person, I made a mistake. I'm from a small town in Ohio. The way sex workers and drug addicts.
He's from a small town in Ohio. If you're from a small town in Ohio, you know, I guess that. Why is this even worth mentioning. Dude, you could be from a small town in fucking Timbuk fucking too. It doesn't change anything about this.
Operate is not
All of this, like he has this pet theory that some like Dr. Steve Hassan or whatever is out to get him, like some random celebrity psychologist even knows who he is or something. And it's really funny because all of his arguments are just emotional manipulation. They're all like, you should have sympathy for me because of the experiences that I've gone through in my life, while skirting around the details of what he actually did. And the simple fact that it's not acceptable no matter what you've gone through in your life.
not something I'm deeply familiar with. Somebody got inside my head. I got emotionally wrapped up, and that's a mistake.
Dude, do you think anyone's deeply familiar with sex work?
The way sex workers and drug addicts operate is not something I'm deeply...
Sex workers and drug addicts operate? Were you manipulated by a devious sex worker slash drug addict, Caleb Maupin? Is that the narrative here? You fucking insane bastard?
deeply familiar with. Somebody got inside my head. I got emotionally wrapped up, and that's a mistake that will not be repeated. Now, if you really want to believe that I'm the kind of maniacally evil person who takes innocent, charming young college students and transforms them into heroin-addicted sex workers, I can't stop you from believing that. But anyone who's familiar with this situation knows that's not what happened, and anyone who knows me knows that's not.
He didn't even try to tell us what he thinks apparently actually happened. He didn't give us any detail. He's just like, my friends know it's not true. My friends back me up. I don't give a fucking shit about your friends, Caleb Maupin, because we have like, what? It was like 7 or 8 different people, all with startlingly similar stories about you manipulating them, you making them dependent on you, and like 4 or fucking 5 of them all had similar stories about you probing to get them to engage in your spanking sexual fetish. So, at the end of the day, that is really exhaustive corroboration. And these are people who looked up to you. These are people who
Communism is based,
really fought a lot of you to even arrive at that point. So for them to like come out and say these things against you, it's pretty fucking damning. It's not just some conspiracy. It's not just a bunch of people who hate you making up shit about you. These are people who were close to you. These are people who looked up to you. So for them to 7 or 8 of them all to come out at once to accuse you of, things that may not be crimes that are pretty bad. It's not, something that you can just so easily hand wave away by saying, my friends think I'm a good person. Harvey fucking Weinstein's friends probably think that he's a great person too, Caleb. God.
The person that I am. Now, you'll notice the document never actually directly says this. It just kind of implies it. And it's pretty clear these people had some assistance in putting together this piece in order to frame me in the most negative light, but avoid me suing them for defamation.
It didn't actually say it. It clearly... Wait, where is it? It did directly accuse him of many things. The original document was censored by Medium. I'm not going to a Google Doc, fuck. But the original document absolutely did specifically accuse him of certain acts. Specifically the certain sex acts. So yeah, he's completely lying about the content here.
Now, the second big lie in the document, not directly stated but just implied, is that somehow I was financially benefiting from CPI. Well, that's bullshit. I was constantly running out of money. I was panicking about how to pay for things like trips to Nicaragua, the conference in Austin, the retreat, the conference in Chicago. We got some big...
It's actually hilarious that He apparently had to pay for the trip to Nicaragua. They didn't pay for it. That's sad, dude. That's just sad. Why would you go then? Why would you go to be like an electoral observer or whatever if they want paying for your expenses? And I mean, just because you weren't making a ton of money from it doesn't mean that you weren't exploiting people to keep the organization running, because you were. One of the people he didn't accuse you of making money from it, but he did accuse you of making him dependent on you and the organization so that he would drive you around everywhere. And he even like had to get his mum to help him pay for a new car, or was it repairs for his car or something like that, so that he could continue to do so. You know,
donations, and it helped. But
that was fucked up. That's fucking fucked up, Caleb.
Idea that I was living it up like Hunter Biden, all off of the money people
Oh, guys, just gotta look. Hey, guys, Hunter Biden
donated or gave in their dues. That's ridiculous. From the time that CPI began collecting dues to our temporary shutdown in August, we only ever collected about $8,000 in dues money. But if you add up everything that we spent money on, from housing the volunteers to the conferences to the retreat in Chicago, it cost way, way more than that. Let me add that there were many months that the volunteers were staying in Texas as I paid for their housing, as I paid for their food, when they really weren't doing anything to build the organization. They were just hanging out in Texas, maybe doing a little volunteer work with San Angelo Solidarity.
You made them dependent on you, Caleb. And, you know, if you had to pay out of pocket for that, if you lost money doing that, okay, you clearly thought it was worth doing either way. You still made them dependent on you. You didn't have to like exploit people and make them dependent on you specifically to make money. You know, I'm pretty sure there are other things that drive Caleb, like a desire to be spanked, for example, or like just a desire to like feel important, like he's some sort of Lenin figure or something. So, you know, you don't need to specifically make money from this for it to be bad and for it to be manipulative.
With me footing the bill. This idea that I was living in luxury off of $1 bill donations collected while
He's
people were
just
distributing
making a massive fucking straw man. No, I mean, he did kind of sell his own books and shit. Like, if you've seen any of the pictures of like a CPI event, like it's just like people selling his own, like members of the organization, and all the books that they're selling are his. Fucking hilarious.
In New York City parks, that just doesn't add up. I mean, the facts just aren't there. I was frazzled and worried about money the entire time the volunteers were operating. Now, one of the people in the document who seems to believe that I exploited him would be...
You know what this is analogous to? Like a small business owner being like, it can't be true that I underpaid my workers because I wasn't making much money the whole time, right? My business was in tatters. I was struggling just to keep it afloat. It can't be true that I was underpaying and mistreating my workers. Yeah, it can. And it can here as well.
In prison if it wasn't for me. And we have a screenshot to prove this. This person would have gone back to jail if
Who's this person?
money that CPI had raised was not used to pay their court fines. This person was basically homeless in Pennsylvania, but we opened our doors to them with the...
I'm pretty sure this one is the guy who he manipulated into driving him around everywhere.
The understanding they would help us do political work.
You gave him $300, Caleb? Oh wow. I guess that means that you didn't fuck him over totally and essentially make him dependent on you in order to get him to drive you around everywhere for months on end.
Not only has this person been convicted of a firearms-related felony, they've been kicked out of many mutual aid groups and have been caught doing quite a bit of shady things on the internet.
Okay, prove it. Prove it. Show proof.
You can believe them, though, if you want.
No proof. So for someone who was talking about defamation 2 seconds ago, there sure is little evidence of any of the shit that he's claiming about these people, and it doesn't even matter if all those things about them are true. It doesn't fucking matter at all. Because their stories have been corroborated by many other people. People who looked up to Caleb previously. People who have little to no reason to come out against him like this. So, shut the fuck up, Caleb.
Was coerced into doing anything. These people were all adults with free will, and they lived in Texas for months with me footing the bill for their housing and their food. This narrative where I'm an exploitive predator living off of them and constantly driving them to work harder in order to enrich myself, it just doesn't add up to facts. It's pure malarkey. Now, don't get me wrong in this next part.
Imagine you're one of these people like walking past this fucking crazed guy ranting about pure malarkey on the bridge.
These accusers are definitely real people, and their feelings about me certainly represent real grievances that they have. But for this next part, we're going to get into a section I call Isn't It Interesting? Now, you all know who I am. I work for...
So he managed about 9 minutes before he started getting into conspiracy theory shit. I mean, it was already pretty conspirational. But now,
Russian media. I have ties to various revolutionary anti-imperialist governments and movements around the world. I'm on
revolutionary anti-imperialist governments, Vladimir Putin. Oh man, I love him.
the Ukrainian government's list of information terrorists. Now, isn't it interesting that just hours after this document was published, Daria Dugina, the daughter of Alexander Dugin, was murdered by a car bomb?
Wait! Caleb Maupin thinks that like the attack on Dugan's daughter was coordinated with the evil CPI member documents revealing his proclivities for spanking and sexual manipulation. Isn't it interesting? Isn't it interesting, Caleb Maupin? Amazing. I cannot. This is incredible.
We all know that one of the main talking points against me by the BreadTube universe is the fact that I met with Alexander Dugin once in 2018. They constantly call me a Duginist. Isn't it interesting that the Communist Party USA, a group that spends all of its time campaigning for Democrats and has been trying to smear me as a neo-Nazi despite years of anti-racist activism, had a resolution condemning me, all prepared to send out the very next day after this document?
The very next day. Yeah, Caleb. How long do you think it takes to write something? You know, you had been in a long-running dispute with these people on Twitter and shit like that. And the CPI, the CPUSA is a pathetic organization. Don't get me wrong. But, acting like, isn't it interesting they had a statement that they released the next day? Yeah, Caleb. It takes 20 minutes to write something like this, Caleb. They don't need to have it prepared. They just need to read the blog post and then write something about it. Isn't it interesting? They had a statement prepared. Caleb, have you ever written something before?
Was published. This resolution that they published supposedly took months to prepare. They had this resolution.
How did it take months for them to prepare about something that happened the day earlier?
Finally ready to send out to their membership just after this document was published. Now, isn't it interesting that the Party of Communists, one of the only other leftist groups to stand with Russia during the whole Ukraine crisis, just got hit in a similar manner. Almost immediately after I was subject to these smears,
no one even... Who are the Party of Communists? No one fucking knows what that is, dude. No one's ever heard of them. It's probably like two people.
Had their website commandeered with a manifesto accusing them of similar things. I think we can all see what's going on here. Now, it's also interesting to note that one of the people I exposed in my BreadTube book was Dr. Steve Hassan.
Here it is. Here it is. I want to mention, by the way, that there are infinitely more prominent pro-Russia people than Caleb Maupin, who are not having any of these issues that he is. Like Max Blumenthal, for example. Max Blumenthal is allowed to do whatever the fuck he wants, and there's no sexual assault allegations against him, is there? You know, people like Russell Brand, there are these massive, Jimmy Dore, there are these massive figures who are not getting sexual assault allegations against them, who are not having 10 members of their organizations coming out against them. But according to Caleb Maupin, this was a coordinated attack on defenders of the Russian invasion of Ukraine or the Russian government or friends of Dugin or whatever. But the only people who they seem to have attacked are a tiny communist party that no one's ever heard of and him. None of the actual big players who are actually influential. Just a guy with 24.6k YouTube subscribers who reports from the street for Russia Today. Caleb, you're a delusional motherfucker with main character syndrome. If you don't want to be accused of paying people who you're in a position of authority over to spank you, don't pay people who you're in a position of authority over to spank you. Okay? It's nothing to do with Dr. Steve Hassan, who, if you'd asked him, he would have no fucking clue who the fuck you are. Jesus Christ. Get over yourself, Caleb. You're not this important.
Steve Hassan used to be associated with something called the Cult Awareness Network, and he's one of the leading cult analysts and experts on cults who appears on CNN. He called for a mass deprogramming of the country after January 6th. I exposed that Dr. Steve Hassan was involved in advising prominent breadtube personalities.
He didn't even do that. Remember, he in his book, we went over it, and like there was literally nothing in there. Nothing. I read that book on the stream. It was like more than a year ago now. And there was nothing in there. You didn't expose anything. You were just like, oh man, I think that this guy is probably linked to these random guys who make videos, shitty videos on YouTube. None of whom have ever heard of me. None of whom have ever even spoken about me in any way, shape, or form. And that he's definitely involved in a massive conspiracy against me. Dude, it's incredible. This is the equivalent of like gang stalking, like random people who are convinced that like every single person they see on the street is part of like an FBI operation to stalk them personally and drive them to suicide. Caleb Maupin is like a gang stalking conspiracy theorist. He has like this vendetta, this very personal vendetta against a bunch of people who he legitimately seems to believe are trying to bring him down. And if you ask any of them if they've heard of him before, they would say no. It is so fucking great. It's hilarious.
Isn't it interesting that much of this document reads like something out of one of his books? All of his key talking points about brainwashing and mind control seem...
I can guarantee the document doesn't have any of those terms in it. And it's not like it would be interesting or a coincidence, because fact of the matter is you manipulated a bunch of these young impressionable people to make them reliant on you and to make at least one of them spank you. Okay? So it's not very interesting. If he's someone who writes about cults and you're someone who is engaging in very cult-like activity, it's not at all interesting that people talking about the activity that you engage in would sound something like what this guy has written. You dumb motherfucker.
To have been worked into this document. Now, isn't it interesting that in the aftermath of this piece being published, people in the CPI that are still sympathetic and working with me have been getting text messages from some of the accusers, offering to help them be deprogrammed. Now, it's also...
Oh, please. Show us the text messages. He showed a bunch of other text messages. If he had them, if they were real, he would have showed them there. But they're not. They're not there. Isn't it interesting that this thing that definitely happened, but which I will show you no evidence for whatsoever, not even a possibly manipulated screenshot for it. Unspecific claims. For someone who was talking about others trying to skirt around defamation, he's very much trying to skirt around defamation. If you're in his situation here, making these claims, what you would do is you would say, this person factually sent a message about deprogramming to this other person. Here's the screenshot of it. And because you could defend that claim. If it came down, push came to shove, you had to defend it legally. You could defend that. But it seems like Caleb doesn't think that he can defend these claims, so he's not showing any evidence. He's not being specific about who said what to who.
Also interesting to note that I have received reports that one of the authors of this document has been spotted near Russian Orthodox churches around the country. He's been walking up to people, telling them all about me and how bad I am.
This is literally the most far away out there, obviously made up shit imaginable. And the evidence for this, a random Google image picture of a Russian Orthodox church. Is that even a Russian Orthodox church? Maybe, I don't know. Could be a Greek Orthodox church. But that is insane.
To people, telling them all about me and how bad I am. And then from there, telling them that he has ties to European monarchies and that he wants to set up some kind of pro-Russian commune. And he really needs people to sit down with him and talk to him without their cell phones.
That sounds a lot like you, Caleb.
Now, at one of these Russian Orthodox churches where he was camping out and making these claims, the locals seemed to believe he was a cop. Now, some others seem to think he may just be having kind of a psychological meltdown of some kind. But it's well known that this individual is now a traditionalist Catholic and a full-on anti-communist.
Dude, this is Keaton Mansfield, like this random 18-year-old guy who Caleb Maupin literally wrote a book with, and he was a traditionalist Catholic and a conservative anti-communist the whole fucking time that he was in Caleb's org and everything. You know what this is? This is like just an 18-year-old doing the, oh, I'm going to change my political ideology today thing. Except he hasn't really changed much because he was like this when he was with Caleb. The reason why he gravitated towards Caleb is because Caleb has many of the same conservative tendencies that he did at the time. Like, you wrote a fucking book with this guy, Caleb. And now you're framing him as some insane... And the book that he wrote with him was specifically about Christianity. And now he's trying to frame him as some insane conservative idiot. You made your bed. You sleep in it now. This is the sort of person you attract.
It's also very important to note that as soon as I heard this document was in the works, I called up the individual in question, the sex worker. I called this person up on the phone and apologized to them. They told me they did not feel victimized by what went on between us, but rather they were upset about an argument that we'd had months later.
Okay, proof.
They accepted my apology. Then on the phone, they told me, quote, I am not comfortable with people using this to get their revenge. Now, I've also got...
Do you have any proof? Well, of course not. Whatever, man. Hold on, I gotta get water because this is getting spicy. I'm yelling a lot. Be right back.
الشعب السوري بالساحات للمجد بيرفع رايات عم يهتف بثلاث كلمات الله وسوريا وبشار كنيسة وجامع متحدين والمحبة عنوان الدين وملايين السوريين وما بدهن إلا بشار تعزوا هز الكون وما بينهزوا يا ربي من عندك عز الجيش السوري هالمغوار سوريا رجالها فرسان لما بتنزل على الميدان الا بتحرير الجولان وما بيرضى القائد بشار ابراهيم هانانو والسلطان باشا بزمانو شعل فرنسا بالنار والشيخ صالح بجباله قاد الثورة برجاله وحافظ وصى أشباله بسوريا بلد الأحرار
Okay, we're back. Okay. Let's keep going.
Reports from people who were initially invited to join the...
Just want to comment on, you notice how all that he's doing is attacking these people and saying like, oh, they betrayed me, blah, blah, blah. He's not contesting the facts. His only contestation of any of the facts was to say, my friends will tell you that none of this actually happened. None of it is true. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting that he's not contesting the facts. All that he's trying to do is poison the well by attacking the people who accused him of shit and not even contesting a word of what they said, just being like, oh, this guy's a crazy Christian, blah, blah, blah. Oh, this sex worker is a drug addict and she's a liar. And she said that she wouldn't, she accepted my apology, but then she went public anyway, blah, blah, blah. Even if all of that is true, it doesn't matter. Because if the things that they said about him are even remotely true, he's a fucked up weirdo who's done some pretty bad shit. So, all of it's irrelevant. His defense is just totally irrelevant and just attacking people.
accusations against me, that this person seemed very reluctant to be involved. They kept saying things like, why don't we all just go talk to Caleb? So ask yourself, how ethical is it to pressure someone in life circumstances like this to come forward and draw public attention to themselves?
How ethical is it for you to pressure a desperate sex worker relapsing from drug addiction to let you pay them to spank you? How ethical is that, Caleb Maupin? All of this made-up narrative that he's going with here, even if it was true, it wouldn't even remotely mitigate the shit that he did. Unfucking believable.
When they don't even feel personally victimized. Now, I can't prove that this person was under threat or they were compensated for what they did. I do know their name was left out.
The only thing that they were compensated for was being spanked by you. Holy shit. You can't prove, I can't prove this or that or that. That's what Caleb always done. He crafts these ridiculous narratives and he's like, well, no, I can't prove this, but we all know it's true. Fucking hell.
Out of the document, and I will be protecting their privacy as much as I possibly can. Now, one thing I do know is that this person had legal troubles over the past year. And one thing that...
You notice how he keeps mentioning, like, people having trouble with the cops as if it's a delegitimizing factor? He keeps mentioning drug addiction, like people having problems with the cops and shit, as if that's a bad thing.
Should be aware of is the fact that when people are facing criminal charges, often plea deals involve the person agreeing to cooperate with police investigations and covert police activities.
So he's trying to say the cops made this document to delegitimize the CPI. Caleb, you are nowhere near as important as you think you are. Your organization has never and will never be a threat to anything aside from the poor, impressionable young kids who got wrapped up in it. Get over yourself.
Now, someone who's not a fan of me at all, someone named BadEmpanada,
here we go.
That to him, it sounded like this entire document was written by a single person. The whole thing had a similar narrative flow to it. It looks a lot like what happened was that some ex-members of CPI were assembled, and they had very different grievances.
I don't think that's what I said at all. I think what I said, if I remember, hold on, let me see, is that when I initially read the document, it sounded like it was written by one person. And so I thought it was like a troll, by like a Vosh fan or something. And but then everyone came out and put their name to it, and I was like, oh, so it's just that a bunch of people got together and put a document together, which is a normal thing to do. When all of you, when there's multiple people who have all been wronged by the same person, it's very normal to sort of band together and come out together at the same time to make accusations against them. This is what lots of sexual assault victims do. For example, it's literally the very concept behind a class action lawsuit. Because wouldn't it be better if every individual just made like an isolated attack on you? That would be a million times easier for you to deal with. It's a million times easier to just dismiss. But together we are strong. The very fucking basis of socialism/communism, Caleb Maupin. I think that you would be a bit more familiar with it. So it's not true that to cite me to corroborate this document being false, because I simply initially, before all these people came out and said, yep, that's me, that's me in the document, I corroborate this, like 7 or 8 different people all said that. Before, basically, most of the people in the organization came out to denounce the organization, to be like, yeah, this is really what went down. I doubted it a little bit. That doubt lasted like 10 minutes before I saw that. And I think I say it in this video. Hold on. Yeah, here's what I said.
Briefing out So the first time I read this, I was like, "This sounds like a creative writing piece." Every one of the statements from supposedly
Communism
different
is
people
based-
is written in the same in the same or a very similar way. It really sounded like made up to me. And screenshots are very easy to fake. So I was a bit skeptical. But then like so many people came out corroborating it that there's no way it's not true. Or at least there's no way that like the general narrative isn't true. Perhaps individual details are a bit exaggerated or false, but I think like 20 different people all coming out, all saying the exact same thing. People who were very, very recently in the past were very supportive of Caleb, all coming out and corroborating it, and him deleting his accounts without even trying to like defend himself. It seems pretty cut and dry that it's true.
That's what I actually said. Imagine Caleb trying to frame that as being supportive of him. No, it's the exact opposite. That like a bunch of people said, here's what happened to me. And then someone else compiled that into like a well-written blog post. That's the best way to go about doing this sort of thing. So there's absolutely none of what he's saying here about me apparently supporting him in the falsity of these allegations, in this being an op against him, is true. So yeah, that's incredibly stupid of him. But it is great for me to be mentioned in a Caleb Maupin video. I'm so happy. Hey, Caleb, you want to defend yourself? Come on my stream. I fucking dare you, dude. I fucking dare you.
Different feelings. Some of them liked Keaton, some of them hated Keaton. They were brought together and interviewed, and then some kind of curator sat down and compiled their personal grievances into one.
Some kind of curator. Dude, anyone can do that. Like, some kind of curator. He's trying to frame, like, the most normal fucking thing to do. Like, when someone in an organization is engaging in widespread awful behavior that is negatively affecting many members of that organization, the best thing to do is for people to compile their experiences together and all come out at once. Okay? Because otherwise, you're at risk of just getting... you're at risk of just like being shouted down by people who don't believe you. It's a lot harder to just offhandedly discount people, like what Vorsh has done, for example, with his numerous victims of sexual harassment. It's a lot harder to just discount them when it's like 8 different people all coming out at once, rather than just one person making an allegation and getting shouted down and harassed into oblivion. Okay? So him framing this as some sort of conspiracy is insane.
Document that had a single narrative flow.
This is a completely normal practice to do. It's the best practice to do in any situation even remotely analogous to this.
To it. An atmosphere was created for these people to one-up each other and their stories about my supposed manipulations. Despite all these people having different grievances and different feelings, this document was put together and given a narrative flow so that it served one particular
He loves the word narrative flow.
Purpose. Now, anyone who's familiar with Dr. Steve Hassan and the Cult
He loves talking about this guy who's definitely never fucking heard of him.
Awareness Network should recognize this style of work. This is how they tend to carry out their operations. It's also worth noting that this is very similar to how the Democratic Party operates against its political rivals. There have been a number of Democratic primary campaigns that have been taken down in a similar manner. They find some sex drama related to the group, and they get into all kinds of complicated details. They publish a piece, very long and complicated.
He's trying to say that The Intercept is like an evil pro-Democrat organization?
All kinds of people's negative feelings about some kind of sexual drama, and they publish it online, and people see it.
He cannot contest the actual allegations, so he's just trying to craft this. This is what Caleb Maupin does. He creates these bizarre, idiotic, conspirational narratives about like people attacking him and blah 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 blah, as if he's even remotely important enough for that to be a thing. He has these insane delusions of grandeur, the worst main character syndrome you'll ever see in your life. Like he's the average American taken up to 11. Rather than contesting the facts of the matter, he's just like, this is all a conspiracy against me, led by Dr. Steve Hassan.
And they get grossed out and they look away. Rape is rape. Sexual assault is sexual assault. But I'm not accused of anything like that in this document. When it really gets down to it, this document doesn't really accuse me of very much at all. Amid all the innuendo.
The document accuses you of manipulating a bunch of mostly teenagers / early 20s people who are highly impressionable, who looked up to you greatly, into essentially dedicating their whole lives to helping you run like your own little pet organization to try and turn yourself into some sort of modern day Lenin, while also curiously multiple times getting some of these people to like indulge you in your fetish for spanking, and getting at least one of them to literally spank you. That's fucked up, Caleb. All of this is fucked up. You were, for all intents and purposes, forming a commune, and not a good sort of commune. You were forming like a cult sort of commune with a bunch of impressionable young people with stupid, dumb, undeveloped brains, to get them to rely on you, and to get some of them to indulge you in your sexual fetish. That is fucked up. It's using a position of power over people to essentially feed your own ego / indulge in your sexual fetish.
About me being an evil, manipulative cult leader. All that they claim I did was engage in consensual interactions with 2 consenting adults, most of which were just conversations. And all
Most of which, there are a couple of these that we know went a lot further than conversations, Caleb Maupin.
all the
Oops.
paragraphs they had maligning my character, that's all they could really accuse me of. Now, they did manage to find the grossest screenshots they could possibly find, and they're really counting on people not actually reading this entire document. They want people to just be grossed out and disgusted. Now, if CPI were a sex cult, they would have a lot more to accuse me of.
It doesn't need to be specifically a sex cult. Okay? It doesn't have to be specifically a sex cult. It can be a vanity project for you to get a bunch of impressionable young kids to feed your ego. And it can also involve you opportunistically manipulating some of the members into sex acts with you / into indulging you in your sexual fetish through uncomfortable conversations about spanking. It can be both of those things at once. So for him to try and spin this as him being accused of having a sex cult is just bullshit.
And a lot more people to come forward with sexual allegations against me. Furthermore, if CPI were a sex cult, the accusers themselves would not be saying otherwise. The idea
Now look. You notice he didn't actually contest the content of the document. He just said the stuff that's listed in the document isn't actually that bad. It's not really that bad at all. That's a tacit admission that what is said in the document is true. It doesn't matter if he wants to characterize it as not that bad. He's admitting it that it's true, essentially there. Didn't straight up admit it, but he heavily implied that it was by him not contesting and just being like, it's not even that bad. So, okay, I encourage you to go and read that document with that tacit endorsement from Caleb, and you'll see that it really is quite bad. It really is quite unacceptable. It really is quite fucked up. So, look. Caleb can try to say it's not really a big deal as much as he wants, but I think anyone with half a brain can go and read that and see that it is a pretty big deal.
that I wrote books that are hundreds of pages in length, that I spent thousands of dollars putting on.
You notice how he posts a picture of like the CPI selling books,
that I wrote books that are hundreds of.
and like most of the books are his. That is just another, like most of them are his or like reprints that he made of other people's books that are in the public domain. So like for him to like use this picture as an example of him being sincere or something, when it's a great example, another great example of how the CPI is little more than his own little personal vanity project to get a bunch of kids worshipping him personally is a bit stupid.
Pages in length, that I spent thousands of dollars putting on events, that I spent years and years trying to put together an organization.
Yeah, you did all of this to feed your own little ego because you see yourself as some sort of modern day Lenin. That's why you did it. I'm sure the spanking stuff was just auxiliary to that. You were just sort of opportunistically trying to get people to engage in your fetish. And you got some of them too as well. Because you can't keep your dick in your pants, even though you're fucking married, apparently. God, hold on. I gotta take an allergy pill. I love fexofenadina, chlorohydrato. I'll be asleep in 10 minutes.
Literally live on Twitch, he called me a subhuman Mediterranean.
I did. He's a subhuman Mediterranean. Like, it's just so fucking... Like, he's trying to spin what people are saying about him as the most extreme version possible and being like, that's not true. Okay. Well, even if we just take it as this cult being a vanity project to get a bunch of kids to feed your ego, in which you opportunistically try to exploit some of them to legitimize your sexual fetish, that's still fucked up. Even without the sexual fetish part, it would be fucked up.
All just as some kind of elaborate scheme to get sexual favors out of people is utterly ridiculous.
Yeah, I
Now,
preempted that so easily.
I know there are some people that are going to have a lot of PTSD and a lot of traumatic experiences in their past, and they are going to be compelled to believe such a thing. And there's nothing I can do
I just
about
want to finish this at this point. I just want it to be done.
that. But if you believe that, you're not processing information properly. That's just not the reality of the situation. The people who published this document and made it possible for such claims to be made against me should really be ashamed of themselves. They knew this would happen. They knew this would be used against all anti-imperialists.
Feels like he supports the Holocaust.
Is it being used against all anti-imperialists? You're not nearly important enough for that to be the case, Caleb. What the fuck are you talking about?
Just had to do this. Their temper tantrum against me, their personal resentment.
It's like, you can tell he desperately wishes that there was like an NYT article like, communist pro-Russia leader Caleb Maupin outed as evil sex pest. But the best that he got was like an article written by a random like algorithmic Markov chain bot that just like saw Caleb Maupin trending on Twitter once and like compiled a bunch of random shit it found on Google about him to get some ad clicks on an ad about Taylor Swift. And that's literally it. There was nothing. Like, the cognitive dissonance between how he imagines this went down and how it actually went down is hilarious. Amazing.
Resentment and anger was so important that this had to be all over the internet and it had to hurt our
Does
whole
have 3 different camera angles? It's great that he got like a videographer to film this for him, and it's still so bad. Like, look at the colors. Dude, what is this? Like, the sky is completely blown out, like half the fucking image is overexposed, and then like he like just puts on like this blue, like this really bad teal and orange filter that's incredibly poorly done. It has way too much teal and nowhere near enough orange. It looks like shit.
community. Now, some of the claims in the document just don't add up. For example,
And like they're clearly different cameras because the color, they couldn't get the colors to match between the different angles. Like, look at the face there, look at the face there. Caleb, you I don't know. You might have you probably could have done a better job finding your videographer here because this guy sucked.
against all anti-imperialists, but they just had to do this. Their temper tantrum against me, their personal resentment and anger was so important
Communism
that this
is
had
based-
true that a number of young adults get stuck living at home and that becomes a source of psychological frustration and problems for them. It hurts their self-esteem. Sure, and I do encourage people to get out on their own, have independence from their parents. But it's important to point out that at our retreat that happened in Kansas, one of our attendees brought his father with him. His dad was there the entire time, participating in group activities, sitting in on the classes, engaging in discussions with people. Another attendee brought his wife and his 2 small children with him. They slept in a tent. The idea that I am
They slept in a tent. Oh man, that's so fucking weird.
manipulatively separating people from their families so I can exploit them is just not true.
I mean, if you get people to, like, young kids, 18, 19, 20 years old, to move across the fucking country and make them reliant on you, you know, even if you didn't intend to do that, even if it just sort of happened by accident, that's still fucked up. That's still completely fucking incredibly fucked up.
There's not a single person that I've ever separated.
And he factually did do that. It's not a matter of him like being like, oh, I'm not going to let you talk to your parents. It's a matter of him being like, hey, you need to move to New York from the other side of the fucking country. And you're going to stay in this hotel room with this other person. You don't have a choice about this matter because, you know, you rely on me to have accommodation because you're a random 18-year-old kid with no money, no job. You know, you might not be like actually being like, you can't talk to your parents anymore, I'm separating you from your parents or something. But in practice, you're doing that anyway. You're making these kids reliant on you. And that is a massive practice of cults. Doesn't matter if I don't read Dr. fucking Stephen Hassan to know that. You don't need to specifically regulate who people can talk to or whatever to be separating them from their family or their friends or whatever, to be isolating them
from their family or forced to cut off their loved ones. Now, do we practice for our CPI events? Absolutely. Do we chant at our events? Yep. Do we sing? Yep. And we're going to keep doing that. If you want CPI events to be boring, you're in the wrong organization.
That doesn't sound boring. It just sounds cringy. It just sounds embarrassing.
I built CPI because I like to have exciting events with emotional speeches and passionate moments where people can come together.
Yeah, that's literally it. That's why he built CPI. Because he wants a bunch of people to sit there and listen to his fucking insane, stupid speeches and clap for him and cheer for him. That's what it's all about. Okay? And that's the fucking problem. The rest of it is tacked onto it. Like the sex assault and shit, the sexual harassment allegations, whatever, the sexual manipulation. That's obviously worse. But CPI in of itself is a vanity project for a main character syndrome egomaniac to exploit his small niche of fans from the internet to get them to feed his ego and to get some of them to spank him. And that is weird and fucked up. It doesn't have to be a sex cult to be weird and fucked up. Like, I have way more fans than Caleb Maupin. I've had, this is, honestly, it bothers me a lot. Some of my patrons, you probably saw this happen. There's been a few times where I've had fans, literally, just out of the blue, DM me with fucking nudes and shit. Send me emails, being like, hey, I'll come visit you and we can fuck or whatever, and shit like that. I had, a few months ago, someone pay to join my Patreon Discord, joined and was like, hey, BadEmpanada, hey, you want my nudes or whatever, shit like that. I don't remember what it was or something, but you guys who were in there, you probably remember that. And I said, what the fuck is wrong with you? And I banned them, immediately. But it's incredibly easy. Even if you have, a small niche fan base. My fan base isn't big or anything. I only have, 70k YouTube subs. Caleb has 24k, right? But it's incredibly easy when you're, one of these niche internet figures with people who really like your content or whatever to exploit them. They'll fucking, some of them will throw themselves at you. And that doesn't make it okay. It doesn't make it fine or whatever. Because you're in, you're in a sort of a position of authority over them. And in Caleb's case, that's basically what he's doing. He's exploiting the fact that he's in, a niche of, he's in an authority position in his small little niche of maybe a couple hundred, maybe a couple thousand dedicated fans. But all it takes is a couple thousand dedicated fans for there to be a couple dozen of people in there who would be ready and willing to devote themselves to you in really creepy ways that it would be very exploitative for you to indulge them in. So yeah. If it reminds me of there was that YouTuber, nothing to do with politics, but the Call Me Carson guy. He was an 18-year-old and he had fans who were around his age sort of throwing themselves at him. And he I can sort of understand. I think the whole thing about that was sort of overblown, but I can sort of understand, he's this kid getting attention from the opposite sex who he's attracted to for the first time in his life. And he's not really smart enough to realize what was going on there and how it's kind of fucked up and wrong for him to indulge them in that, to engage in that with them. But Caleb Maupin's not a random 18-year-old kid like that, okay? Caleb Maupin didn't just exchange sexual texts with some fans or whatever. Caleb Maupin started an entire fucking organization of devoted fans, got a lot of them to move across the country to feed his ego, to feed his Lenin roleplay fantasy, and opportunistically got at least a couple of them to indulge him in his sexual fantasy. That's not even remotely on the same level. You know, there's like a lapse in judgment of like sort of you know, like engaging with the random groupies that any niche, even the small niche celebrity figures are going to have, you know, happening once or twice. It's like, if that was the case, I'd be like, you know, well, kind of messed up what you did, but it's not that big of a deal. You can, you know, you can learn from that experience and just in the future just fucking, you know, just ignore those people, block them or whatever. Or better, reply to them saying like, hey, you shouldn't do this, you know, you should just like my content, you know, don't become enamored with me as a person just because you like the videos that I make on the internet. But Caleb Maupin did not do that. He went so fucking far beyond that. He went so fucking far beyond like just like getting a bit too involved with fans. So, you know, I can forgive the Call Me Carson guy. I'm like, you know, I hope he learned from that experience. If I was an 18-year-old kid with millions of YouTube subscribers and I had like, you know, like someone around my age messaging me like wanting to fuck me, I'd probably like engage with them positively as well. You know, I can't say I wouldn't, because it's fucking it's pretty obviously like a manipulative situation. But if I was 18, I wouldn't realize that, not at all. And it's something that you'd have to learn from. So it's not like he was raping them or anything. That's what people were framing him. Like this kid was like raping these people by sending them, like sexting with people who were his fans or whatever. Not even close, obviously. It's just something that's quite inappropriate to do. And I don't think he realized it when he should have. What Caleb did here isn't on that level. It's not on the level of something that's very easy to forgive. It's something that, you know, we have this much older person, much more experienced person, like manipulating the fact that he has a lot of fans, not a lot of fans, but enough fans for him to form this group with, to put himself into a position of power over them, to feed his own little ego and to indulge in some of his sexual fantasies with them. That is fucked up. That's not the same thing, especially because it was actually in real life, not just exchanging some cringy fucking texts with fans or whatever. So that's fucked up. It's wrong. It's stupid. Like, I think, like, personally, I think I've met like one fan ever, and it's someone who's not really even a fan. It's someone who's just like, I engage with on Twitter, who became like a friendly acquaintance. That's all. And I don't want to meet any more fans. I don't even want to meet other creators. So like, what Caleb's done here is so fucking far beyond that. Like, Jesus Christ. And I could do it too. I could do something like this too if I was as much of a fucking weird freak as he was. Anyone with some degree of a dedicated niche following could easily do so. But actually doing so, that's the issue here.
I want to build a community of solidarity where people who've been left behind by the system can find a place to belong and can feel empowered as we study revolutionary ideology. Now, if you don't want to participate in it, that's fine. But there's really no reason to invoke Jim Jones and Waco because you don't approve of a good show. Now, the people who published this document claimed it wasn't about cancel culture, but that's exactly what it was. This wasn't about justice. This wasn't about trying to get reforms in our organization. This was about inflicting pain.
It's about inflicting pain, dude. You can't reform an organization that is specifically some loser's fucking vanity project that is built on the exploitation of random 18-year-olds to get them to feed his ego, and that involved a lot of weird spanking fetishism. Okay, Caleb? They don't need to specifically want to reform the organization to be doing this in good faith. When that's what the organization is, there's only one path for it to be destroyed. And I'm glad that it was, and I really hope that no one joins your idiotic organization again.
They wanted to humiliate me. They wanted to give a piece of ammunition to those who don't like me that they could use to cyberbully me and make fun of me for years to come. And that is the reality.
You know, I've had people make wild, idiotic accusations against me before, and the way that I've dealt with them is to prove them wrong, to deal with the allegations, talk about how and why they are wrong, and then maybe after that I'll talk about what the motivating factor was in people making this shit up about me. Caleb Maupin, like, all that he does is like form a conspiracy about what's motivating the people who are making allegations against him, while ignoring the most important part, which is directly addressing what they're saying about you. It's fucking crazy.
Imagine having trauma like this in your past. Imagine that it's affected you this way as an
Oh
adult.
yes,
And now
it's all
imagine
about your
kinds of-
trauma. It's all about, dude. He's like a sentient Tumblr post now. What was it? It's like, what's like the fucking meme? Like it's like I'm literally neurodivergent and a minor. He's doing that. He's doing the I'm literally neurodivergent and a minor thing. Great.
Who don't know anything about you except your view of foreign policy or the character that's been painted of you in RedTube videos, having access to it. Every time I open Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, I am going to see people taking things that happened to me in my childhood and mocking them and distorting them and using them to ridicule me. Regardless of the mistakes that I made, I did not deserve this. The people who put this document out should be ashamed of themselves. What they did was a very nasty, vindictive thing that did not help anything and did not really advance the struggle for justice in any way. Now,
I mean, it's not like your organization existing does either, buddy. You just hold cringy fucking rallies where you give dumb speeches to already convinced teenagers.
the Center for Political Innovation is back, but some things have changed. We are now incorporated as the CPI Education Project in the state of Oregon. Now, I do not control the bank account.
He's not even from Oregon. He's from New York.
And I will not be playing an administrative role in the organization. There will be other
But he's still going to be the one giving all the speeches and leading the chants and shit, of course.
people who take on those tasks. I'm written into the bylaws as the ideological leader, but other
The
people...
ideological leader! He's literally written into the laws as the ideological leader. That is so fucking bizarre. That definitely doesn't sound like a cult, Caleb Maupin, but I guess Dr. Stephen Hassan had to tell me to consider that fucking weird.
will be running the day-to-day activities of the organization. Former CPI members are welcome to rejoin, and new people are welcome as well. Go ahead and click the link down below. You can become a member of the CPI now that we're back in business. Forgiveness is offered to those who maybe overreacted or flipped out in response to this whole...
Fucking wild that he's like, I might forgive you. I might forgive you if you're lucky. As if, like, they're the ones who need to be forgiven, not him.
situation. I made mistakes. So did others. We all said some things we wish we could take back. This whole situation has been rough for all of us. It's been a tough few months, and I'm glad we're back. The people who signed this document are not welcome back in CPI. The point is not to punish them. I have a feeling a number of them already regret having put this out there. This is about protecting our organization. The reason they are permanently banned is because their presence puts the entire group in danger. If they are capable of doing this over such petty grievances, imagine what they...
Such petty grievances, like you running a fucking vanity cult full of impressionable young kids and getting one of them to fucking spank you in exchange for money and desperately trying to get others to indulge you in your spanking sexual fetish. Such petty grievances, right?
might do to your community, your organization, or your family. I admitted that I needed help in order to get more self-control and make sure I didn't repeat the mistakes I made. These people also need help, and unless you want your dirty laundry all over the internet, my advice is to steer clear of them. At the very least, they are easily manipulated. Now, I'm a Christian and I believe in forgiveness, and I've spent a long time trying to process why these people would go out of their way to do something so vengeful and mean-spirited. A couple weeks after this document was published, one of the accusers texted me, "You won." I didn't reply, of course, but I looked at it and I thought, how did I win? How did anyone win here? All that came out of this was that CPI temporarily dissolved. I had to be silent for a couple months. And those who don't support Venezuela, Iran, Russia, or China got a new piece of information to ridicule all of us that are anti-imperial.
Dude, no one uses this to ridicule everyone. People just use it to ridicule you because you're a fucking weirdo. Because you're just a hilarious weirdo. You've always been a hilarious weirdo who doesn't have any meaningful effect on anything. Like, I don't like to use the term because it's, you know, it obviously comes from fucking Kiwi farms, but Caleb is the definition of a lol cow. He's the lolliest cow of all. Cow of all.
with. Now, it's worth noting that the two people that came forward with allegations against me were members of Students and Youth for a New America before the pandemic, when we operated a little bit differently. Back in those days, I would rent a classroom, give a lecture on communist history, and then afterwards we would all go out to the diner. Now, the kind of things you might share with a small group of friends is very different than the kind of things you would share with those that you work with in a full-on professional organization with real funding. Now, one of the people who wrote the document said she couldn't understand why I was always saying not to be anti-American and not to talk about left adventurism or terrorism and criminal activities, but yet I wanted her to go on a trip to Venezuela. Apparently, the idea of visiting a socialist country that's under threat from the United States really scared her. Another one of the people who signed the document couldn't understand why I was angry with him because of the fact that...
I mean, I'd be fucking scared if like some guy who I go to the diner with every now and again wanted me to go to like a foreign country for some reason. That'd be out of left field and fucking weird.
We raised quite a bit of money to send him to Nicaragua, and he then bailed on the trip and left us with the bill. Almost all the people who signed this document are in there.
It's so fucking pathetic that they went to Nicaragua to be election observers with their own money. Dude, you're supposed to be paid to do that. You're supposed to be like that's supposed to be something that you're funded to do. That's like a job. It just shows that what they were doing was essentially that's the cockiest shit I've ever heard. They were paying out of profit to essentially do propaganda for the Sandinista government, which is very degenerate at this point. That's hilarious. Like, if that doesn't prove that it's a vanity project more than anything else, I don't know what does.
Late 20s, almost 30, but still living at home. They love being communists on the internet, but being involved in an actual organization and doing actual work where people are relying on you is something that they're just pretty freaked out by. Things like being part of a community, engaging in international travel, are things that just make them quite uncomfortable.
What just happened with the audio?
They'd rather be...
Engaging in international travel. You need to be engaged in international travel to be a communist? If I was 18 years old and some fucking weird 35-year-old guy wanted to send me to Venezuela, as like that would freak me the fuck out too.
Safe at home with mom and dad. Now, I opened a lot of doors for these people. I got one.
Now he's like insulting them for living at home. Dude, the fact that they live at home just fucking shows that most of these people are poor. They can't afford to move out. That a ton of the people who you're involved with are poor kids who can't even afford to leave home yet. And you're painting that as like something to attack them with? What the fuck is wrong with you?
One of them on the Tucker Carlson show. I was always encouraging them to write more and speak more.
You got them on the Tucker Carlson show? That's
a lot of doors for these people. I got one of them on the Tucker Carlson show.
You got someone on Tucker Carlson? Tucker Carlson, fucking the basic leader of fucking... Tucker Carlson is the modern day Der Stürmer. He's like the modern day chief of white nationalist ideology, and you're like, I got one of them on the Tucker Carlson show. Like, that's a good thing? That's a good thing for you? What the fuck is wrong with you? I cannot believe I cannot imagine bringing that up. Like, the fact that he can get people on the Tucker Carlson show, that is fucked up. What the fuck is wrong with you?
I was always encouraging them to write more and speak more. I wanted them to step up and find their own voices. If this was some kind of cult, I would have made it all about me and suppressed them.
You did make it. It's all about you. Everything about this group is just you speaking and selling your books and people worshiping you. That's why most of the people involved in it are just people who found you from your YouTube channel.
And pushed them down, but I didn't do that. Instead, I opened doors for these people, and they fell on their faces. Now, my frustrations in the revolutionary movement over the years was always feeling that I had been suppressed. I always felt like I was not being given the opportunity to speak and to write and to perform the way that I could. I always felt like there were certain individuals that were holding back my potential and my ability to make a contribution. And I always made a point of not doing that. I always appreciated people who gave me an opportunity to shine before the world. But I guess for some people who've been given opportunities and then fallen on their faces and not been able to look good, they might...
He's literally just like, I did so much for these people. How dare they come out against me? Not a single ounce of substance in this video. It's very Vorsch-like, I must say. I mean, it's also very Caleb-like, because this is just what Caleb does, but there's so much in common between, like, Caleb and the people who he claims to hate, like Vorsch. Like, ideologically, they're extremely similar in terms of their end goals for society. They're both massive American exceptionalists, and they both have absolutely zero substance whatsoever. They both just, like, attack people without actually addressing anything of what they're saying. So, like, it's great how much they, like, It's great just how much they have in common despite hating each other so much, you know?
come to resent somebody. They might feel like someone pushed them forward only to make a fool of themselves.
Yeah, both sex pests too. It was really funny to see Vorsh and his fans covering this. Like, have some fucking shame, dude. Vorsh spent fucking years brutally sexually harassing a woman, an autistic woman. And then when she came out with her story, she was fucking...
That wasn't my intent.
Absolutely crushed by him, his fans, and his hanger-ons. Like, just harassed even more into oblivion. Vorsh even said that he wanted to silence her, to scare her into shutting up. For them to act like fucking... Like, even fucking talk about what Caleb Maupin did as if they aren't fucking cut from a similar cloth is such a fucking joke. Disgusting people.
I was only trying to help these people and give them opportunities. They seem to have fell on their faces, and they resent me for it. And now they've decided to spit in my face. Well, I'm sure that they are still in pain. The libidinal rush they got from taking me down with this document went away after a couple weeks. They're still living at home. They're still full of resentment.
He's just like a fucking conservative. These fucking losers living at home. It doesn't fucking matter about the facts of anything. All that matters is that these guys are fucking losers, aren't they? They live at home, these fucking random 18-year-olds. Of course they live at home, Caleb. You know, I'd probably, you know, if I had just got done being fucking exploited for my labor by a cult leader in New York who got me to move across the entire country, who made me reliant on him, probably the only place that I would have to go after that is to move back in with my parents. So, yeah, of course they're still living at home. And a lot of that is because of you. They couldn't progress their lives because they were busy dedicating them to your fucking cult. You dumb motherfucker.
They're still lonely. They're still angry. They're still frustrated. They're still depressed.
Jesus Christ, he can't deal with any of the actual allegations. All that he can do is attack the people who made them. Pathetic.
Hopeless. They're still bitter, and they're still not going anywhere in this world. The idea that publishing this document and trying to take me down was going to make their lives better was an illusion. They're right back where they started. They've showed the world how willing they are to inflict pain on other people.
This guy is a pathetic loser. He made a big mistake citing me in this because, like, I'm just going to shit on it, and it's going to get, like, 5 times the views that his original did. Like, dear God.
Embarrass other people. And exposing me, they expose themselves. The fact that I can look into the camera every day and do my job on international television, despite having my deepest, darkest personal secrets all over the internet, shows that...
You can, yeah, with Russia Today. I don't think, you know, Russia Today gives a single fucking shit about what you did. All they care is that you're one of the few people who are willing to delegitimize themselves by working with Russian state media at this point.
I'm pretty resilient. They didn't take me down with their long, drawn-out internet gossip column. The city-building tendency and the Center for Political...
The city-building tendency! Oh, there's no city-building tendency, my dude. You're one fucking loser with a vanity project who tried to, like, coin a fucking phrase for your dumb ideas that are little more than FDRism. Give me a break, Caleb.
Innovation and our constructive, optimistic socialism is still here. We're going to keep marching ahead. Catch you on the next stream.
Catch you on the next stream.
Communism is based...
What is this? What is this?
Still here. We're going to keep marching ahead.
What is that?
Catch you on the next stream. All right.
I know you. You are from RT.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, I like you.
Thank you. Very good.
Yeah.
I adore you. You are from RT. Like, he's trying to make it out like a random passerby is like, I adore you. I love you. You're from RT. Dude, that's probably like some random person who he knows who he got to come and say that to him. Unbelievable. Like, you want to talk about people like getting organized and like doing things in a really shady way? Caleb, you hired like a videographer to film a scripted video with you on like a fucking waterfront with 3 camera angles, and you got like a random person, probably fucking paid them, to walk by and pretend to like you and like put it at the end of the video as if it was an authentic interaction that really just randomly happened. No one knows you, Caleb. People don't know who you are. This doesn't happen. Is it his wife? It might be his wife. I don't know, though. I haven't heard his wife talking. So it could be his wife.
Wish you everything good.
Oh, and same to you.
Yeah, by Russian.
Oh, very good.
Thank you.
All right. Very good. Okay.
Okay, that was embarrassing as hell. I've said more than enough there. I don't need to make a grand conclusion or anything. It's more than enough. There's the response to Caleb Maupin finally coming back to talk about what happened and now he's just going to go on as if nothing ever happened. But I mean, you know, whatever. If Caleb Maupin can get through this without being so-called cancelled, that is proof that cancel culture does not exist, more than anything else. A small guy still having a platform at the end of the day, even after being laughed at and like accused of like a bunch of shit by people with way bigger followings than him. It just proof that there's no such thing as cancel culture. So yeah. Anyway, that's it. I'm done covering that. I hope you guys are happy. Be right back.
الشعب السوري بالساحات للمجد بيرفع رايات عم يهتف بثلاث كلمات الله وسوريا وبشار كنيسة وجامع متحدين والمحبي عنوان الدين وملايين السوريين وما بدهن إلا بشار الجيش السوري بوقفة عز وهز الكون وما بينهزوا يا ربي من عندك عز الجيش السوري هالمغوار سوريا رجالها فرسان لما بتنزل عالميدان إلا بتحرير الجولان وما بيرضى القائد بشار ابراهيم هانانو والسلطان باشا بزمانه شعل فرنسا بالنار والشيخ صالح بجباله قاد الثورة برجاله وحافظ وصى أشباله بسوريا بلد الأحرار فجر الحرية بحروف الأبجدية سريان وفينيقية غير سوريا ما منختار قولوا بالصوت العالي بدنا نصون الرسالة للغالي وابن الغالي وبالروح منفدي بشار الشعب السوري بالساحاته للمجد بيرفع راياته عم يهتف بثلاث كلماته الله سوري.
Hello. All right, I addressed the Caleb Maupin question. Finally, we did it. We've done it. Epic. Epico. 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 Who's epic here? Are you epic? I'm epic. Can you give me money now? Can you give me money now? Everyone give me money. I need cash. I need dollar. I need dollar bill, y'all. Dollar bill.
$5 a month.
I do need $5 a month. Thank you very much.
Communism is based.
There's no room. They can't come there.
There's no room. They can't come there.
Praise be to Allah.
It's not a meme to us when I ask for money. Like, I literally end the stream if I don't get enough money. Like, if I don't get...
If you don't trust the CIA, then who do you
If I don't
trust?
get, like, at least $20 in the next five minutes, I'm out of here. $20 is fucking nothing, man. It's nothing. I had, like... Dude, I had an offer for a sponsorship of $1,400, and I'm so fucking dumb that I turned it down. And I think I offended them. I was like, this doesn't, this wouldn't make any sense having this sponsor my video.
Feels like he supports
and they responded
the
like,
Holocaust.
all good, nothing else. I probably should have just taken it. I think if I get like, honestly, if I get like a sponsor that, even if it makes absolutely no fucking sense whatsoever to have that sponsor on my channel, I'm just going to go for it because $1,400 fucking dollars, it's like, that's more than I make on my entire Patreon every month. Like, that's fucking ludicrous. What was it for?
It's piss?
I don't remember what it was for.
No!
Like, the weirdest, it was like, it was a company from Scotland that like gives you like the titles of like aristocratic lords or something. You know, like those, like you can buy some vanity title and be a Scottish lord or some shit. And I was just like, how could I possibly
I'm consuming.
incorporate that into one of my videos? How would that be possible? But at this point now, I'm just like, okay, if I get something like that again, I think I'll just take it.
Communism is based.
Because like, it'll just be like an ad break. You know how they have ad breaks in a podcast that's just completely out of left field? It's just like a normal ad. I don't give a shit, honestly. Because that sort of money would be life-changing, so why not? Even regardless of how out of place it is, you can just skip it. You know, like a 1 minute ad spot in an hour-long video isn't a huge deal. You just fucking skip it. I don't give a shit like how against my principles it is.
Feels like he supports the Holocaust.
I'm just responding to this sponsor email right now.
Uyghurs.
But anyway, yeah, I don't have anything else to talk about today. And no one's giving me money.